B. Tonight on Newswatch, severe storms are heading towards southeast Ohio. Newswatch forecaster Emily Dietz has the latest. Plus, Ohio University's new president lays out her early plans for the university after 12 days on the job. And OU teams up with a local nonprofit to help clean up waterways in southeast Ohio. Newswatch starts right now. Good evening, I'm Haley Hollinger and welcome to Newswatch. It's been another beautiful day here in southeast Ohio and you're taking a live look outside at Uptown Athens. But severe storms are heading our way as the weekend approaches. And joining us with more on this severe weather is Newswatch forecaster Emily Dietz. Now, Emily, what can we expect from these severe storms?
Yeah, so they're going to start moving in around Thursday in the late afternoon time, and they're actually a little hard to forecast for right now based on the way the system is forming up. So we're really hesitating on what time exactly we're going to see these storms roll by, but we know that in the late afternoon going into the evening, that's mainly when the severe threat is going to be out there, and we're mainly looking at hail, wind, and rain being our main sources of severe weather damage. And over the past 24 hours, we've actually seen a low pressure system develop. If you take a look going on right now, and that low pressure system actually has a stationary front moving along with it right now that's producing a lot of rain you're seeing out in Iowa right now and Illinois, and that's really flaring up. We've seen a little bit of tornado warnings being popped up, severe thunderstorm warnings, and hopefully we're going to stay away from those severe tornado warnings, but we may just be getting severe thunderstorm warnings. Now what's going on is we have low pressure circulating right around western Illinois. And along with that is a stationary front. So what happens with a stationary front is you have two frontal systems, your warm and your cold front, and one meets up with the other and creates a sort of stationary boundary. So the wind's not really moving a lot, the system is just kind of staying there, and that can create a couple of different weather patterns. And for us, we're just seeing this sort of build up a lot of rain and a lot of severe weather, and that's going to start moving into Ohio going on a little bit tonight, but for down here in southeast Ohio, we won't really see the full effect of this until Thursday, and that's going to leave us with a slight risk for severe weather stretching from the Ohio Valley all the way up to New York. And once again, we're not looking at tornadoes as being our main risk, although we cannot rule them out. It's mainly going to be hail damage as well as wind and possibly rain. We're looking at up to an inch of rain falling, so if you live in a flood-prone area, be advised for anything going on. And we have that stationary front tomorrow that's going to move through. So in the morning, we're going to see some clearing of the skies a little bit. In the afternoon, we'll see more clouds start to move on in. And throughout the day, we'll have a little bit of sunshine poking through here and there. But for the most part, tomorrow evening is when we're really going to see a lot of these storms start to fire up. Around 3 o'clock is when we're going to see the main intensity happen. And that's going to carry on overnight tomorrow night and into the early morning, such as 1 to 2 a.m. on Friday. Be sure to stay tuned for the full forecast. We're really going to look at the storm system and how it's going to impact you. Back over to you, Haley.
Thanks, Emily. Ohio University President Dr. Lori Stewart-Gonzalez is answering questions after 12 days in her new role. Newswatch reporter Caleb McCleskey is live in studio with what she had to say about what she plans on for the university. Caleb?
Thanks, Haley. President Gonzalez hosted a media roundtable today to discuss future ideas for the university and opportunities for students. At the roundtable, Gonzalez said that she wanted to prioritize the students at Ohio University and their needs to pursue a higher education while gaining practical experience. In order to do this, Ohio University wanted to add new programs to increase student organization participation.
Where do we have growth? Where do we have new programs that are on a new frontier for student learning that's a career we don't even know is here yet? You know, data analytics was not a thing you were hearing long ago, and now it's everywhere. We're getting a program about that. What are the other programs that are on the cusp of our future so we can have our students ready to take the lead in these new frontiers?
At the roundtable, President Gonzalez also wanted to discuss what she wants people to know about Ohio University.
Discoveries that have changed lives, saved lives, made things better for all human beings. So I'd like to be able to talk to people about what we do. I think there's sometimes a disconnect in the rhetoric that we say, and people see us as one way, but once you get here and have lunch with students and meet our faculty, you see that it's really a noble purpose to educate the citizens of Ohio and beyond.
Gonzalez wants current and future students to know the university will be with them every step of the way. She hopes to see these plans in place both during and after her time here in Athens. Reporting for Newswatch, I'm Kayla McCleskey, live in the studio.
The Ohio Association of Food Banks Board appoints a new executive director. Jory Navanti replaces Lisa Hamler-Fugit. Hamler-Fugit is expected to retire at the end of this year. Navanti joined the organization in 2010 and helped lead a variety of statewide efforts to leverage resources, including the liaising with the Ohio National Guard during the deployment to food banks at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. In a press release, Navanti says she is committed to promoting food and economic security across Ohio. Ohio voters can use expired forms of identification in certain circumstances to cast their absentee ballot for the August election. According to Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose, outdated forms would be accepted as long as they include certain personal identification documents with a photo ID. Acceptable previous forms include a driver's license or state ID number, the last 4 digits of a social security number, or a copy of the voter's photo ID. With early voting underway in the August election, Pro-Issue One group Protect Ohio's Constitution sent out letters this week featuring the outdated forms. Ohio's schools will be required to accept cash at all ticketed events starting this October. A rule in the Ohio state budget says schools are required to accept cash at school-related events that charges admission or has a concession stand. Under the new rules, schools unable to accept cash payments will be required to give free admission to anyone wanting to pay with cash. The Ohio High School Athletic Association says it intends to provide better guidance on what the law actually means before making any major changes. Thousands of students are getting ready for another school year. Local businesses and organizations pitched in today at the 5th annual Back to School Bash in Nelsonville. Haircuts, backpacks, new shoes, and school spirit are just some of the things kids need before going back to school. The Athens County Department of Job and Family Services Back to School Bash connects children with local organizations offering these items. Executive Director Jean Demoski says the best part about the event
is seeing the faces of the children when they receive their backpacks and their school logo clothes and their Nike shoes.
Athens County has one of the highest rates of poverty in the state. Organizers of today's event say providing new school supplies takes a financial burden off families and creates a better environment for all students.
It is a great start to their school year. They start the year with confidence. They got on new kicks, they have a new backpack, they have books and materials in it, and it makes them ready for the year and excited for the year.
The event is a community effort with more than 1,000 people in attendance. WOUB's Learning Lab was on hand with books and school supplies. The Nelsonville Fire Department kept kids entertained with activities. The Catherine McCoy Resource Project had personal hygiene products. 13-year-old Claire Abraham normally provides these items through distribution sites at schools. She says it was nice to see the project's impact in person.
The entire experience is just eye-opening to see what everyone else is coming from.
Claire says she plans to expand the project with a mobile unit. Students won't head back to class for a few more weeks, but today's Back to School Bash has kids a step closer to hitting the books. And more information about other services the Athens County Department of Job and Family Services provides can be found online at jfs.athens.org. Starwood Festival, the nation's longest running transformational festival, is underway in Pomeroy at Wisteria Campgrounds. Organizers with the Rosencrest Project call it the nation's longest running transformational festival. The week's activities typically draw a crowd interested in alternative spirituality. Some of the event's highlights include a large bonfire, dancing to live music, and art classes. Rosencrest Vice President Erica Torrey says the festival provides an inclusive environment. The festival closes Sunday with a goodbye potluck at 6 p.m. And coming up after the break, rescue efforts begin in Vermont as floodwaters recede. Plus, new data shows inflation continues to cool in the U.S.
Severe weather is expected to come in tomorrow afternoon. Find out how that'll impact you when Newswatch returns.
A frozen desert world, but once blue with water, and perhaps more.
What everybody wants to know is whether or not Mars once had life.
And if it still survives today.
Finding the organic matter is the clue. to searching for life.
The planets, Mars, on Nova.
Wednesday at 10 on WOUB.
An orphanage in war-torn Ukraine serves as a safe haven for vulnerable children. Inside its worn walls, they find friendship and flickers of hope. A house made of splinters on POV.
Monday at 10 on WOUB.
Welcome to the age of humans. Do you think being a biologist makes you a better hunter?
I think it goes both ways.
We've got to have a way to keep this a shared landscape.
2 to 3 million whales were killed.
The pursuit of this wild duck connects people to past generations. We feed ourselves, and we feed our family, and we feed our culture.
Wednesday at 9 on WOUB.
I was on a kayak whale watching trip in California when this happened. A humpback whale breached on top of us.
How can you get that close to something that big and not die?
I was drawn into a much bigger story. There were other close encounters with whales.
I became obsessed with whales, and that's where the detective work starts.
Wednesday at 8 on WOUB.
Ohio Valley Summer Theater opens its production of the musical Rent tomorrow. Newswatch reporter Ariel Lyons is live in the studio to tell us a little more about the production. Ariel?
Thanks, Haley. Rent has been performed countless times all over the world, but this is not your ordinary production of the modern classic.
Rent is set in the New York City of the 80s during the AIDS crisis, but the Ohio Valley Summer Theater's production brings the musical into the modern era with the incorporation of modern technology like smartphones.
I think a lot of people assume that just because there is medicine for AIDS and HIV that it is totally cured and not a problem anymore, but I think the most important thing about setting it not in a particular time period is showing how this disease still affects marginalized people.
Rent tells the story of a group of artistic friends struggling to get by. The show deals with HIV-positive people and people struggling with substance use disorders. Alina Nicole Rosado, who plays the character Mimi, says the subject matter can be challenging, and the cast has been looking out for one another.
Dealing with such hard topics as like the AIDS crisis, we have to be very careful and making sure that the actors' mental health is really taken care of. Because it's a very dark piece. So being able to be with people I'm comfortable with has been a really great experience.
As many times as Rent has been performed, the Ohio Valley Summer Theater says their performance is quite out of the ordinary.
Rent opens tomorrow at the Baker Theater in Cantner Hall on Ohio University's campus and closes its run July 23rd. For ticket information, go to ovst.org/rent. For Newswatch, I'm Ariel Lyons.
And now taking a look at weather, water rescues and evacuations are underway in Vermont, as nearly 70% of the U.S. population will endure temperatures into the 90s over the next week. Ivan Rodriguez has the latest.
More than 50 million Americans will face life-threatening triple-digit temperatures this week.
This heat wave that we're experiencing right now can be fatal.
Nearly 70% of the U.S. population from California to Florida expected to endure sweltering temperatures at or above 90 degrees with no break in sight.
We continue to set new record highs for heat-associated deaths. Heat is a really serious public health hazard. We don't talk about it as seriously as we should all across the United States.
Meanwhile,
no way, bro.
In Vermont, rescues and evacuations are underway in Lamoille County after catastrophic floods triggered by a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall have devastated parts of the state.
We are still in an absolute crisis. We still have many rivers that are in moderate to major flood stage.
But as floodwaters recede in some places and people begin a massive cleanup effort, the threat of new floods is emerging. with another round of rain forecast to fall on already hard-hit areas Thursday and Friday.
This may not be over. With rain in the forecast and nowhere for it to go, we could see waters rise again.
We have to continue to be vigilant and mindful that more flooding is a very real possibility. This is going to be a years, if not a decade-long recovery for the state of Vermont.
Reporting for Newswatch, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
Joining us again is Newswatch forecaster Emily Dietz. And now, Emily, what can you tell us about the storm system?
Yeah, so we're going to see part of that right now as we go into our evening on Thursday. That's really when we're going to see a lot of this start to take up for us. And sorry, my computer shut down for you there. Looks like we're having nicer weather on the computer screen than we will be seeing on Thursday. Fortunately, but right now we're looking at partly cloudy skies, about 89, so we're still seeing a lot of heat that's being seen across the country right now as well, and we'll be getting a little glimpse of that rain tomorrow. But as of today, we had mostly sunny skies, pretty high UV index as well, so another day to stay cool, stay inside, drink plenty of water. We saw a high about 87, but we're going to expect that number to sort of bump up moving forward. Now, we've got a lot of rain started building up right now around Chicago area. We've actually got a tornado warning issue that may be starting to move forward a little bit, and we're going to expect some severe weather going into Thursday. So while tonight we won't really be seeing too much, we're really going to expect things to take off later. Now, a lot of what's going on is since we have a low pressure system sort of swirling up going on, and with that low pressure is a stationary front. So what happens with the stationary front is you have two frontal systems. For us, we have a warm front and behind it a cold front, and that cold front is already moving a lot faster than that warm air. So when that cold front catches up to that warm air that's moving a bit slower, it creates a stationary front, and that weather just sort of sits there, and that can last to hours up to days, and in our case it's only going to last a few hours. And what happens is we still have that warm air that's pretty moist and that cool air that's going to force a lot of this warm air to rise and still creating a lot of this rainy weather, a lot of the severe weather that we're still seeing, and that's going to slowly move into Ohio. But tonight we'll see a low of about 56, another chillier night tonight, or not chillier, but cooler night tonight, a bit refreshing with a little bit of fog going on. We'll start to see a little bit of cloud coverage start to move in. But for tomorrow, that weather is going to start to set in mainly in the afternoon into the evening time, leaving us with a slight risk of severe weather all the way up to New York. And with that severe weather, our possibility of tornadoes, hail, wind damage as well. But for us, mainly down here in southeast Ohio, we're mainly looking at hail, wind, and water as being our main source of damage. Now, water won't be as much of a threat as it has been up in the New England area, fortunately for us, but we are expecting about an inch of rain. So if you live in a flood-prone area, please be advised for that. So tomorrow morning, we're going to see the system start to lower down into the area. We'll see that stationary front start to settle into Ohio a little bit. And in the morning, we'll see partly cloudy skies, partly sunny skies. And with that morning heating is going to create a lot of instability. And instability is key to thunderstorm development. Now, into the afternoon and into the evening time, that's when we're going to see things really kick off. Because what happens is when you have some winds in the atmosphere pushing up against that stationary front, it can cause it to separate again. And so we'll see that warm front and that cold front take off again. And that cold front bumping up against that warm air is going to help influence a lot more thunderstorm action. So that's why we're going to see things start to pick up. That's also why it's kind of hard to look at what's going to go on as far as weather going on with a stationary front, since it just sort of sits there. But Friday, that cold front will push through, push this severe weather out to the west. So we might see a little bit of severe thunderstorms in the early morning times, leaving us with a 50% chance of showers. But after that, Friday will start to clear up a little bit, and Saturday we're in for another rainy day, and we're going to look at that later this week. So have a safe day tomorrow.
Thanks, Emily. For people with sensitive skin or conditions like eczema, the heat and humidity can worsen symptoms, and health experts say some clothes and fabrics may irritate skin further. Allergist and immunologist at Ohio State's Wexner Medical Center, Dr. Kara Wada says in the heat and humidity of summer, you want to wear clothing that's smooth in texture and loose fitting. She says skin can actually become irritated by sweat, and the clothes you wear could make it worse.
Something that is cotton or linen that's going to be breathable, and also lighter in color is going to help reflect some of that heat so that our skin is able to breathe and stay cooler as well.
Wada says to avoid irritation, wear synthetic fabrics like polyester, nylon, and spandex, which may trap in heat and sweat. WADA says it's also important to protect skin from the sun. Those with sensitivities who have trouble with chemical sunscreens may opt for a mineral-based broad-spectrum sunscreen, or simply wear a rash guard or long flowy shirt to protect your body. New data from the federal government shows inflation continued to ease last month, but economists caution there's more work to do. Karen Kafa breaks down the numbers from Washington.
A cool down to start the summer months.
I think consumers might be breathing something akin to a sigh of relief because the worst of inflation behind.
For the 12th consecutive month, U.S. inflation slowed in June, according to the Consumer Price Index reading released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics Wednesday. Overall, consumer prices increased 3% year over year, the government said, far from a peak of 9.1% last June when prices climbed at their fastest annual rate since November 1981.
So this isn't a much better place, but it's not yet to the promised land of where we want to be. We still see some elevated prices for things that are important.
It's good news for consumers at the grocery store, with overall food prices continuing to moderate and the index for meat, poultry, fish, and eggs falling in June. Energy prices fell. Gasoline prices are down 26% from last year. Airfares dropped too. But shelter costs remain stubbornly high, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics said that accounted for the bulk of the June increase. The overall number also good news for the Federal Reserve. The jobs report released by the Labor Department last Friday showed a strong but slowing U.S. labor market. The Fed rolled out 10 consecutive rate hikes prior to last month's meeting in an effort to tame inflation. The central bank is expected to raise rates again at the end of the month. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
After the break, NATO allies vow substantial security protections and aid for Ukraine. And to stay up to date on the latest from Newswatch, check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
A frozen desert world, but once blue with water, and perhaps more?
What everybody wants to know is whether or not Mars once had life.
And if it still survives today.
Finding the organic matter is the clue to searching for life.
The planets, Mars, on Nova.
Wednesday at 10 on WOUB.
I was on a kayak whale watching trip in California when this happened. A humpback whale breached on top of us.
How can you get that close to something that big and not die?
I was drawn into a much bigger story. There were other close encounters with whales.
I became obsessed with whales, and that's where the detective work starts.
Wednesday at 8 on WOUB.
Did you know that local laws and regulations determine how your estate will be distributed if you don't have a will? Nearly 70% of American adults have incomplete estate plans, and thousands face this problem every day. This season is the perfect time to build out your estate plan and protect the people and programming you care about. Estate planning can seem like a lot to tackle, which is why WOUB Public Media is sharing Free Will, self-help estate planning resources that have empowered more than 350,000 Americans to plan for their futures. An estate plan can help you protect the family, friends, and pets you care most about, plan beneficiaries for your assets, and create a powerful legacy that supports your favorite broadcasting for years to come. To learn more and get started, I invite you to visit freewill.com/WOUB.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky leaves the NATO summit in Lithuania without an invitation to join NATO. Still, President Zelensky is calling the two-day summit a victory for his country and assurances from NATO that his country will one day soon join their ranks. Laura Aguirre has more.
All our allies agreed Ukraine's future lies in NATO.
The promise of future NATO membership for Ukraine, but no invitation yet.
Ukrainian delegation is bringing home significant security victory for the Ukraine, for our country, for our people, for our children.
Victory in the form of substantial security guarantees and aid, confirmed by G7 leaders Wednesday, designed to strengthen Ukraine's economic and military resilience against Russia's aggression.
You have to know that you spend this money for not just for fighting,
you spend this money for our lives.
I hope we finally have put to bed the notion about whether or not Ukraine is welcome in NATO. It's going to happen.
Still, no timeline was given as NATO leaders balance diplomacy and global security.
If Ukraine were admitted to NATO today, that would mean NATO would be at war with Russia today.
But the alliance did commit to streamlining Ukraine's path to membership. In Russia, the Kremlin issued a warning regarding summit events Wednesday, saying NATO security guarantees for Ukraine would only endanger Europe's future for years to come. A warning that didn't dent U.S. resolve.
We will not waver. We will not waver.
Reporting for Newswatch, I'm Laura Aguirre.
When we return, water cleanup. But first, here's a look at what's coming up tonight on your public television station.
On country music.
I think hard times and country music were born for each other.
A troubled nation turns to the radio.
The music just provided encouragement to people to gain assurance for a brighter day beyond this world.
Bob Wills shakes up the stage.
Bob Wills was like Elvis Presley. He was outrageous.
And the war brings a new audience to country.
World War II nationalized country music.
When country music continues.
Thursday at 9 on WOUB.
Coming up on the next Song of the Mountains.
When you close your eyes, hear that midnight chorus
Broken, battered from this long. Lively performances where old tradition meets new here on Song of the Mountains.
Thursday at 8 on WOUB.
Next time on Antiques Roadshow, this is Melanie. Melanie inherited this automaton from her friend Jim.
I always thought it was really creepy.
Normally, if it was working, the eyes on the dolls would move. Also, they would be drinking tea. It is sort of creepy if you look at it.
Is this your cup of tea? Find out next time on Antiques Roadshow from Omaha, Nebraska.
Monday at 8 on WOUB.
Next time on The Great American Recipe.
We want you to cook your most beloved holiday recipe.
I'm making a Thanksgiving dish.
This was our Christmas dinner.
This is their time to bring it.
You gotta move.
This is not a drill.
Every grandma has made latkes. My grandma didn't make latkes.
No, you didn't.
All right, moment of truth. Here we go.
Who's ready to party? Yeah!
Shall we dig in?
Finally tonight, Ohio University and True Pigments LLC are working together to clean waterways across Southeast Ohio while bringing artists some new paint. True Pigments LLC, a social enterprise launched by Rural Action, is working with OU engineering and art students to create a water treatment system that can also serve as a public art exhibit. Through the partnership, the students will be able to cultivate different paint colors that will then be used to create different works of art. Rural Action's Chief Executive Officer, Debbie Phillips, talks about how the project is benefiting the community on multiple levels.
Help clean up an environmental problem, create jobs in the process, and be used in art. It just feels like it's firing on all cylinders to have so many wins coming out of something that in the past really was only looked at as a problem.
The artwork created with the paint will be able to be seen at a public art exhibit.
And a quick look at some weather for tonight. We're expecting a low of 56 with a little bit of fog and a little bit of cloud coverage going on. But tomorrow we're going to see some severe weather going on, possibly most likely in the late afternoon time into the early evening, producing mostly hail and strong wind.
Thanks, Emily. And that does it for our broadcast this evening. Thanks for watching. For Emily Dietz, I'm Haley Hollinger, and stay tuned for the PBS News Hour coming up next. And remember, you can find the latest news anytime on WOUB.org or follow us on social media. Have a great night.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.